Every single day, we lose a part of ourselves. Another ounce of our being lost in the ether of time. Every second, every minute, right up until the day that we die. And as much as we might try to resist it, death is inevitable. And just like all humans, our time will come eventually. But is it more the death that we should fear? Or the legacy that we will leave behind? Should we be remembered for the people we were? Or through the things we've made? Good or bad? I wonder if the inventor of the printing press ever thought about the ripples his invention would cause long after his death. Or the inventor of the telephone, or the locomotive engine. Heck, even smaller things, like someone making a block building game, or writing a song, or sketching a mouse. Despite how small these actions may seem at first, they've caused ripple effects that are undeniably massive, and long after these creators' deaths, they have majorly affected the world that we live in. Sometimes those ripple effects can be so massive and so irreversible that it's challenging, sometimes even impossible to undo, especially when ripples from multiple decisions cross. Such cases can lead to some major events, from disastrous to breathtaking, and the effects thereof can likely never be reversed, even if their creators want them to be. And that leads to kind of my whole point here. Would you want to be remembered for who you were as a person, through the things you said or the actions you took, or through the things that you created, the wondrous or maybe terrifying designs that entered the world through you? Because believe me, I guarantee you the creators of Fast and Furious Supercharged don't want that to be their legacy. That's right. Today, we're going to be answering the question, what exactly is intellectual property in theme parks? And why is it the bubonic plague sweeping the industry at large that must be eradicated? And yes, I do mean eradicated, erased, deleted like the scum it is. You see, intellectual property is a scam. I was at the store the other day and I nearly had a heart attack just trying to buy Cheez-Its. They're everywhere. It's my belief that intellectual property adds nothing to everything, and if anything, it's stopping me from enjoying my third favorite cheese-based snack, which I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. So why don't you join me to learn how we can squash this epidemic? Don't worry, I'll explain on the way. But first, before we tackle a topic as massive as this is, we gotta set our definitions straight. And that means a quick search on Google. Google defines intellectual property, or intellectual property, it's an interesting way to say it, as a work or invention that is the result of creativity, such as a manuscript or a design to which one has rights and for which one may apply for a patent, a copyright, trademark, etc. But in the case of theme parks, we can typically simplify that down to a work that is the result of creativity. Think of a movie, or a game, or a television show, or a book, or heck, just media at large. That's intellectual property, or IP, as I like to call it, and are likely going to call it for the rest of tonight a lot, because I really don't want to have to say intellectual property 1,000 more times. That one book concept your sister has been throwing around forever, that's IP. She's just gotta finish writing it. That one game idea your brother's been working on for months? Yeah, that's IP. Heck, you could likely chuck a rock at a TV, take a picture of the remains, and that'd be intellectual property. Oh, no, wait, someone else has already done that. And that's the key to intellectual property, is that it's gotta be unique. You can't just re-release Super Mario Bros. And rename Mario to Jeff. First of all, because that's not your intellectual property to begin with, and second of all, because Nintendo would break down your front door before you even think about doing that. FBI, open up! Therefore, people that own intellectual property own the rights to the things that they've created. And when those people work at larger companies, those companies then own the works. Run the numbers, and you've got the answer as to why Disney owns 70% of the world and your firstborn child. Oh, I was wondering why I didn't come back from school today. So, how does this tie into theme parks? Well, to start at the beginning, back when the concept of Disneyland was only a glimmer in Walt Disney's eye, we had carnivals. And considering the fact that large-scale media were still finding their footing, IP didn't particularly exist much in these environments. Rather, the craze of intellectual property adaptation was mostly starting in film, with the Disney company creating films based off of fairy tales and books. However, when Disneyland rolled around, the entire thing changed, since the concept of Disneyland was supposed to take you from the drab, desaturated world of the 50s and into the world of these films, essentially meaning that the first theme park rides at the park were adaptations of adaptations of original IP. Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Pinocchio, Snow White, these are the stories that Walt and his team had adapted for the theme park from the films that they made, which were adapted from the original books and tales. It's strange to think about now, but pretty much all of Fantasyland was IP Central on opening day, and somewhat is today. Now, Disneyland still hosted plenty of other original attractions that were unconnected from other previous intellectual property. However, one could make the argument that Disneyland may not have been as much of a success that it ended up being if it didn't include these IP-based rides. I mean, sure, it may be a classic now, but back then try asking a day one guest what a rocket to the moon was.
You just said it yourself.
And over time, Disney continued to grow and grow and grow and grow, much like cancer does. And now you can't step foot into a Disney park without getting attacked by IP like Coco and Frozen and Encanto and Sleeping Beauty and Ralph Breaks the Internet and Zootopia and Mary Poppins and Frozen Again, Princess and the Frog and Beauty and the Beast and Oliver Incorporated and the Robin Hood and Alice in Wonderland and Family and the Lion King 2, which, to be fair, isn't entirely a bad thing. That's right, it's a terrible thing! But why is that the case? Well, intellectual property is just like any other bacteria. It has the potential to be beneficial, but it actually ends up infecting half the world and giving them symptoms of coughing and disappointment with these quote-unquote creative companies. Most of the time it's used, it just feels like IP was used over anything else because it was quick, easy, and required little to no effort to implement. And a little secret for you, if you round that most of the time up a step, then it becomes all of the time! Cheap is the word of the day today, and that's why IP usage in theme parks is so controversial. It's seen as a cheap and inexpensive way to force guest connections with these parks, primarily to drive up merchandise sales. And when the words cheap and theme parks are used in the same sentence, the theme park ends up going bankrupt or limping along in perpetuity and you get a migraine. It's killing the industry! Therefore, it must be analyzed, found, and destroyed before IP and theme parks could result in the very near heat death of the universe. And my patience. Which is already running pretty low, so let's get to work. Let's cover many of the current theme parks in operation today and see how they use IP to their betterment, or more likely their detriment, and see if we can't find a safe ground to start working on a cure. Now, before I fully dive in, keep in mind that I'm primarily talking about theme park rides and smaller shows here, not large-scale firework performances, meet and greets, or any anomalies. Also, we're primarily going to be focusing on theme parks located in Florida unless stated otherwise, mostly because that's what I'm most familiar with, and it's a good starting ground to cover multiple theme park resorts, as Florida has a host of different tourist destinations all from various companies. Once we go out of state, you'll know. Finally, I'm going to say the word original a lot, and in this context it means something that is unrelated to any previously established intellectual property. Okay, that's all the disclaimers out of the way. Without further ado, let's begin with Disney. So, Disney nowadays is known for being a synergy machine, with Google defining synergy, or synergy, as the interaction or cooperation of two or more organizations, substances, or other agents to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects. It's very rare that a new film comes out and you do not see an immediate reference or connection to it in their theme parks. Although sometimes that's definitely for the best. However, that means that Disney is highly incentivized to add or update attractions with these intellectual properties, which can sometimes be good if the ride is in desperate need of a refurbishment, or bad in the case of Frozen Ever After. Yeah, what's unfortunate with Disney is that you never know whether new IP tie-ins are going to be better or worse than what they're replacing. Sometimes they do a good job, sometimes they're just alright, sometimes they're a completely new thing, or sometimes they just slapped a brand on a ride and called it a day. Oh, and sometimes they're awful! A quick question for you to prove my point. Aside from a few earworms and low-quality looking animatronics, what did Frozen Ever After ever add that its predecessor Maelstrom didn't have? Does the Frozen brand complement the ride experience, or does the ride experience complement the Frozen brand? Trick question, I got you there. It's neither. It actually complements Death himself! It's a parasitic relationship, as the attraction has to suffer in order for Frozen as a brand to grow even more and sell even more Elsa dolls. That's no good. That's a plague! And yes, you could make the argument that, oh, it's just a kid's ride. It doesn't matter if it's low quality because the kids can't tell about that. This is Disney. The company that was known for their spare no expense leader and attention to detail, no matter how small or potentially mundane? I'm not saying Frozen is a bad fit for the ride, but the execution was abysmal. I can't even tell what the plot's supposed to be, or how I'm supposed to feel. That's because this retheme was a marketing promotion first and a ride second. Disney can make good kids rides. They've done it before. This is a travesty. Alright, sorry, I got really worked up there. I just absolutely hate Frozen Ever and everything it stands for. But to be fair, there's a much worse attraction that I could definitely talk about at that same park. But that's a discussion for another day. It's typically not a good thing if, when you make a replacement, people start clamoring for the old version of the ride that was there, even if the original didn't even have that big of a fan base to begin with. I can't recall off the top of my head anyone that genuinely cared about Maelstrom before the Frozen retheme got announced way back when. But granted, I also can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, so take that with a grain of salt. Now, to be fair, Disney has some experience with crafting far more respectful IP connections in their attractions. I've already mentioned they've done it before with things like Guardians of the Galaxy, Mission Breakout, and the entirety of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. But it always feels like a roll of the dice every single time Disney adds IP to a project. Sometimes you get a natural 20, and sometimes you beg the DM for a reroll. Just make a new character sheet. Luigi's Flying Tires wasn't gonna make it anyway. Oh, and you know that whole thing about never knowing whether new IP tie-ins are going to be better or worse than what they're replacing? Well, that applies a lot for our next resort on the chopping block. Universal is in an interesting boat, but to explain why, let's quickly go over a comprehensive history of all of Universal's original non-IP based attractions. Oh, that's right, they don't have any. Yep, Universal is all IP all the time. They've been infected with intellectual property since the beginning. With this kind of a pulse, you might as well be dead. So a big challenge that Universal as a resort faces right now is the fact that they're owned and branded after the film company Universal. And as a result, the attractions that they can produce are quite limited by the films they've produced in the past and the films they're making now. Like, you don't see Universal making any Jungle Cruises or Splash Mountains of their own, do you? Of course not, that would be ridiculous. Hey, wait a minute. Heck, even a ride that is arguably completely free of any previous IP tie-in, Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, has IP integration through the song choices that you can make. These songs are all technically IP too, aren't they? They're camouflaging themselves! IP is pretty much everywhere at Universal, even when it seems quarantined. So make sure the next time you go to the park, you bring your hazmat suit. What do you mean it's not allowed? Most of Universal may be entirely infected with IP and only have a few more weeks to live as a result. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that some small, pitiful part of myself actually liked it. I mean, the usage in attractions like The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man is respectful to the original source material, it adds new life to the property through the ride experience, and it's overall a symbiotic relationship between both ride and brand. Heck, Velocicoaster pretty much does the same thing, and the Harry Potter attractions, and oh no, I'm becoming an IP advocate! Quick, back to the forums! Never mind, I hate IP again. Alright, fine, I can hear you. Universal does have some completely IP-free attractions. They had some completely IP-free attractions. But even in these cases, like the Poseidon's Fury show, this is themed after Greek mythology, but is that intellectual property? I mean, by our definition, yes, so I guess it's technically not original, but hey, it's not based off of any film or TV show, not even the ones based off of Greek mythology, so, it's like diet IP? IP with like sucralose instead of sugar? And if this is diet IP, does that make Dueling Dragons like 0-calorie IP? Why am I comparing rides to soda? I don't even know anymore. Let's just move on to... The ocean is a beautiful, wonderful, expansive, and largely untamed world. The amount of stories waiting to be told from within its watery depths and places to discover could fill a whole novel, a film even. And they have, many times. And SeaWorld doesn't care, as they should, because, well, SeaWorld has, by our definition, no intellectual property. That's right, we're finally safe! When riding attractions like Manta, Kraken, Mako, and even arguably story-heavy ones like Journey to Atlantis, There's not a single marketable film or TV show to be referred to after. No Journey to Atlantis show, or a Wild Arctic book, or even a Sesame Street Land TV show. And boy, is it a breath of fresh air. Wait. It is here! They're everywhere! Okay, wait, don't bring us up to DEFCON 1 just yet. It's only Sesame Street. Fine, DEFCON 1.5 for now. And besides, that branding didn't even exist in the park until 2019, well into SeaWorld Orlando's existence as a resort. But it is IP. Not much, and relegated to a whole isolated part of the park, almost like it's been put in quarantine. But it is there. And I think this is a representation of SeaWorld's challenge with IP, is that they want to use it, just like the rest of the scum, but they can't because they're SeaWorld. And that's not supposed to be a dig at SeaWorld, it's just a simple fact.
Doesn't make it hurt any less.
Think about it. Disney Parks and Universal Parks are subsidiaries of companies specializing in a whole host of media production, namely the Walt Disney Company and Universal Pictures. SeaWorld's parent company is SeaWorld Parks and Resorts, who specializes in trying to convince people to go to Busch Gardens instead of Fun Spot. They've got quite a different market to focus on, so they can't really make their own media content outside of theme parks by themselves. They either need to work with other companies to make media, like with the Sea Rescue Show, or have to beg Sesame Workshop to let Elmo near the orca encounter. Considering the challenges they face, it makes sense that SeaWorld instead focuses on creating fully original, unconnected experiences rather than try to brand new projects to other media releases, simply because those other media releases are wholly out of their control. Sometimes they do get an opportunity, but it's limited. Although that's likely because they haven't sold out like... Yeah, that's right, Six Flags. I'm looking dead at you, staring you down with my two eyes, the scowl of shame. Shame on you, shame on what you've done! You took the IP infection into the theme park world and embraced it like a moth to a lamp. But the lamp isn't emitting light, it's emitting darkness! Shame on you! It sure is a good thing you don't have a presence in Florida because goodness knows the IP infection is already terrible over there. Oh, what? You don't understand why I'm tearing into Six Flags? Alright, fine, I'll show you. Take a look at this. This is Batman the Ride. And this is also Batman the Ride. Here's a third coaster, Batman the Ride. Here's Batman Adventure, the ride, and another ride called Batman the Escape, but most locals call it Batman the Ride. Need some more help? Here, Google defines Batman the Ride as a what the heck is this? I don't even know which one you're talking about! Slap branding, as I like to call it, is when a theme park attraction has a brand that is so utterly disconnected with the attraction's identity that it basically was just slapped onto the attraction in question like a car salesman hand onto a Toyota Camry. In these cases, it feels like there was little to no thought aside from, hey, people like Batman, so let's call it Batman the Ride. Currently, there are now 6 different attractions operating at theme parks around the US, all branding themselves as the Batman Ride, despite varying wildly in ride style, length, and quality. Poor Batman didn't deserve this. Now, this particular example is likely an issue with the brand identity that DC as a company, who owns Batman, maintains, or rather doesn't maintain. But I cannot tell you how many times I've seen an attraction at Six Flags with some weird intellectual property tie-in that could be completely removed from the ride and nobody would bat an eye. That's because all of these connections involve a brand name, maybe some simple themed cue and music, a few logos on the coaster car, and that's freaking it! I could forgive the fact that most guests likely had no idea that Batman and Robin the Chiller had a plot, and that's probably because it was open for less than 9 years. But also because the brand was so unconnected with the ride that I'd forgive you for thinking the film Batman and Robin even had a tie-in. There was a movie called Batman and Robin? There is. It was terrible. Now, to be fair, Six Flags and these other thrill parks are not attempting to accomplish what theme parks do. They're thrill parks, it's in the name. These parks are all about cramming a bunch of record-breaking coasters together. You're there to scream your head off, not imagine yourself in the world of Batman. So oftentimes these rides and coasters get a pass when it comes to IP integration. The IP is not supposed to be the focus here. It might as well just be an advert. The thrill experience itself is what most normal guests are there for. Unfortunately, I'm neither normal nor guest. You can do better, Six Flags, especially when I think of the amazing concepts that other companies could do if they had these brands. Like, think of a ride developed by Universal Creative in the style of The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, but just themed to Batman. The potential is off the charts. But, well, for now, we have Justice League Battle for Metropolis. It's not bad, it's just disappointing. Although to be fair, that lines up with most of what DC does nowadays, so I guess it's on brand? Although wait a second, if Six Flags is trying to focus on the thrill elements, why the heck did they even make this? I gotta stop myself. I could rant about Six Flags' contribution to the death of my patients all freaking day. Well, there we have it. That's all 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse in terms of the theme park intellectual property invasion covered. But what's especially interesting is when IP is used in theme parks like Disney, Universal, and the sort, it's not particularly sacrificed in the effort of improving ride experience. Rather, sometimes it's the opposite. And this is where a large part of the anti-intellectual property argument comes from. Let me give you an example. Mario Kart Koopa's Challenge, one of the first large-scale rides in the entire theme park industry to use a video game-based intellectual property, likely ended up sacrificing the ride's thrill factor or intensity in order to provide an experience to a wider range of guests. Picture this. You've heard about a new Mario Land at Universal that's in development, and then Universal puts up all these cool patents for drifting car ride systems, and it has these people imagining up all these awesome ideas for a thrilling Mario Kart style ride. Maybe it'd be a slot car style thrill ride like Test Track or Radiator Springs Racers, and with the interactive elements plus that drifting patent, like that'd be so cool! That would have been so cool. Now, while the choice to make the ride a slow-moving dark ride likely came about to allow younger guests to ride as well, since higher intensity often means younger guests can't ride due to safety limitations, I would also imagine it got changed because a large element they were focusing on with the Mario Kart ride was interactivity. Being able to turn the wheel, shoot shells at opponents, collect coins, and critically, see other racers through the AR glasses. I wouldn't be surprised if, when questions about how safe you could make the ride came about, especially if the plan was to have guests speeding by at fast speeds while wearing these huge, completely loose glasses, the first thing to go was that speed. And I can't blame them for it, even if I and plenty others saw some missed potential in the concept of a faster, more thrilling Mario Kart attraction. And hey, that's fine. That's just how attraction design goes. Oftentimes, themes and story concepts change over time as new ideas come along and restrictions appear, just like how coaster layouts or even entire ride concepts get shifted around. It's just a byproduct of the attraction production process. Some things are going to be lost along the way. But one could pose the question, is it worth it for the ride experience to suffer in order to provide a better connection with the intellectual property? Or should the property involvement be reduced for the ride experience to reach its fullest potential? We've seen both cases, with Fast and Furious Supercharged discounting ride experience and Six Flags' million Batman coasters sacrificing IP integration. But Mario Kart as a ride isn't really reduced in quality from its initial plan. It's just a different ride altogether. So how does that work? Is it a sacrifice? Is it just different? Is it better or worse than it would have been? There's too many questions. But hey, even if a cool branding concept comes to mind that you can't include in a ride, you could always just make an IP out of the resulting ride later on. Haunted Mansion, Jungle Cruise, the Tower of Terror. For better or for worse, these are now IP based off of rides and lands from the theme parks. Wait, these rides didn't have IP when they were made, so how did they make movies based off of them if there was no IP? Unless... Oh no. IP is everywhere. Even in rides that didn't have it before, it's been created in the process of the ride existing. If we're going off of my original definition of a work that is the result of creativity, then the rides that were created without IP have become IP by their mere creation. Oh my gosh, we're surrounded. We can't escape it. Sound the alarms, we're compromised.
Take us up to DEFCON 1.
We've reached full deep level infestation. There's nothing we can do to stop it. Intellectual property has invaded every single part of the theme park industry, even in areas where we thought we were safe. Which should naturally mean that the theme park industry is collapsing because everybody hates meaningless IP in theme parks. I'm scared to do it. Somebody has to. I'm gonna see if my analysis is correct and take a look at the theme park tourism numbers in 2022. That shouldn't make any sense. I thought IP was a bad thing. I thought it was a sin to be associated with Fast and Furious, and now? Well, these numbers certainly tell a different story. But how? I already said everyone hates meaningless IP in theme parks. But what if this isn't meaningless IP? Is it being used in ways to enhance the ride experience? To allow people to connect with the ride on a level deeper than they would have if it didn't have intellectual property? It's almost like IP isn't a plague or an infection or a fad sweeping the industry. It's a tool, just like any other in an Imagineer's arsenal. They can use it to create immersive experiences that resonate even more with audiences that already have connections to these properties, but only if the tool is used right. That must be it. Perhaps, just like any other tool used in storytelling, it can be used and it can be abused. Heck, I pointed out how Universal Orlando as a resort nearly exclusively uses intellectual property, and it's arguably one of the best theme park resorts out there to date. They must be doing something right. Well, if that's the case, then what makes for good intellectual property integration? What separates the product placement from the product placement of people actually like it? Maybe it needs to complement the ride experience itself, like how a flying simulator fits the Avatar branding. Oh, no, wait, no, not that Avatar, this Avatar. Although, to be fair, that would also fit pretty well with this ride type. Perhaps the story the ride tells has to be a good representation of the work itself, like the action in Rise of the Resistance representing the large-scale space battles of the source material. Or even if it's not very plot-heavy, it needs to reflect the themes of the work accurately, like how the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror represents the fear and horror someone might face if they were ever trapped in the Twilight Zone. Thank goodness that's not me. Maybe even the ride experience needs to be compatible with the target audience of the brand. Tying back to the whole Mario Kart discussion I rambled about earlier. Oh, I've got it! Here's a perfect example of well-integrated intellectual property in a theme park. It's tough to be a bug at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Yes, I'm serious. The attraction starts off with a queue surrounding the park's main icon, the Tree of Life. But as you get deeper and deeper in the queue, the tree gets bigger and bigger. Or are you getting smaller? That's right, it's time for our old friend, Forced Perspective. Welcome back to the show, buddy. Glad to have you. Forced Perspective is our 3-time winner here on the Theme Park Design is Right. They designed the queue to give the appearance that you're shrinking down to the size of a bug, before finally entering the under tunnels of the tree to the theater. In the world of the IP, this seems to be the bug equivalent of a high-end Broadway stage. Here, while waiting for the next show, you can view plenty of pun-filled promotional posters from past and upcoming performances, and it even showcases some actors from the show that you're about to watch. Once you go inside the theater, you can see that it's all built using the roots of the Tree of Life as the ceiling. The gaps in the roots hold the backstage elements, and the butterflies the curtain, which is a very cute touch. Size and theming-wise, it's all well incorporated and integrated into the surrounding structure. And then the show itself, well, it's a special effects show first and foremost, so there's not much to say there plot-wise, but it fits the theme of the park well. Considering how bugs are likely the most forgotten part of the animal world, it makes sense that they ought to have a space to themselves at the park. And as a result, the inclusion of a Bug's Life branding makes sense here. It's the perfect relationship in this case. The theme, or intellectual property, improves the show concept and execution, and the park complements the theme, since there likely wouldn't have been a bug-themed area here at the park if a Bug's Life didn't exist. To put it simply, it's an amazing inclusion of intellectual property that doesn't discount the park or the ride. And as a result, it's clear to see why it's lasted since opening day 1998. Heck, it'll likely be here forever since it works so well with the Animal Kingdom theme. I'd probably need to look more into this intellectual property integration stuff. There's likely 1,000 use cases of bad and good IP in rides and shows and theme parks all over the world. And by no means do I know them all. But hey, perhaps this will open up some discussion on the good and the poor uses, and how the designers of these parks can keep coming up with new, exciting, and imaginative ways to use IP. To conclude this long tirade turned praise fest, if there's anything I've learned today, it's that I know why the CDC hasn't been writing me back. Oh, and that intellectual property in theme parks is just like any other tool. It just needs to be used correctly, and it has been in the past. Flight of Passage, Velocicoaster, Indiana Jones Adventure, and so many other rides have done it right. But a lot have also done poorly, like Frozen Ever After, Luigi's Flying Tires, Skull Island, Reign of Kong, and more. It's up to us to let these companies know what we would like to be represented in their parks, and how they are represented. Because as theme parks begin to rely more and more on their intellectual properties for new attractions, this debate is only going to get bigger. But boy, is it exciting! The potential for rides and their IP tie-ins are mind-blowing. But we need to make sure that they're done correctly, so even when the amazing attractions that defined our childhoods are inevitably replaced, They're remembered for the merit of their quality, not the tragedy of their lost potential. But it is still a sin to be associated with Fast and Furious. Trust me, I tried it a few minutes ago, everyone kept saying I was family, and it creeped me out, and I'm never going again! Hey, wait a minute. Now I know the answers to my questions at the start. I do want to be remembered, even if it's only through the IP I created in my life. But I do want to make sure people remember me for the right things. I wouldn't want to be associated with Journey into Imagination with Figment in my biography. Heck, I don't even think Figment will want to be remembered by that. Well, let's see what we've got to work with. Oh, I could brand myself with a Twilight Zone. I mean, the setting fits, it's all dark here, there's a bunch of stars way out in the distance, everything's black and white for some reason. I do still need to look into that. Oh, and I already mentioned that IP back when I was talking about what was I talking about then? Something to do with the Twilight Zone? Wait, Twilight Zone. Oh no, you can't be! Oh, jeez. Why does this keep happening? Where the heck am I? Why am I still here? What am I gonna do?
Webb, age unknown. A broke man, having left his golden era of youth. Successful in most things, but not in the one effort that all men try at some time in their lives. Trying to go home again.
What? Who is that?
And, also like all men, perhaps there'll be an occasion, maybe a summer night sometime.
Who are you? Hello?
When he'll look up from what he's doing, and listen to the wind.
Hello?
And hear the voices and laughter of the people and the places of his past.
Can you even?
And perhaps across his mind, there'll flit a little errand wish that a man might not have to become old, never outgrow the builds and the companies of his youth.
Do you even hear me?
And he'll smile then too, because he'll know it's just an errant wish.
Hello?
Some wisp of a memory not too important, really.
Hello?
Some laughing ghosts that cross a man's mind, that are a part of the twilight.
Hey! Oh, thank goodness I have your attention. What the heck is going on here? Where are we? Did you cause this?
You have many questions, of a sort which only time itself knows the answer.
Oh, that's vague. Wait, you sound very familiar. Wait, you're not.
Perhaps our fates have crossed just this night, but not for very long, as you have just realized your fate. Webb, locked in the memories of his past, has just come to realize that he's become, just like many others, a permanent resident of the Twilight Zone.